Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the FCS Prep Podcast, where I am your host, Dr. Keith Fairclough. And guys, we are back at it again. We are still going through these 17 emotions, and I got two more for you today. Guys, today we're going to be talking about guilt, and we're going to be talking about loneliness. I'm also going to throw shame in there, but just bear with me. We're going to kind of put those together. I'm going to show you how shame's a little bit different than what guilt is, all right? Without further ado, let's just get into it, man. Let's start. Guilt. The feeling of guilt. Every single person has experienced the feeling of guilt. What is guilt, right? What is that? When we feel that feeling, right? We feel all the symptoms, and I'll go over that in a second. What is it? Guilt is when we have violated one of our own beliefs, one of our own rules, one of our own standards. That is what guilt is. Think about it. Something happens, right? You don't normally allow that stuff to happen, right? Maybe you're a fitness professional and eating right is your thing and working out all the time is your thing. And for whatever happened, now you let yourself go. Right? But you had a standard. So now guess what? Now you feel guilty. Now you don't want to get in front of your camera and you want to talk to people about health or whatnot, right? Because you feel guilty. Why do you feel guilty? Because it's like, dang, that's not even me. That's not even how I operate or how I move or how I believe. But that's what happened. This thing happened, right? So we have that guilt, right? We violated our own belief, our own rule, our own standard. What are some of the symptoms associated with guilt, right? You got restlessness. You got difficulty looking people in the eyes. It could be tension in your chest. You know, we can be avoidant at times because we don't want to be around people because of that guilt. It's like, oh man, what are people going to think of me? They're thinking I'm a fraud or a phony or a liar or a cheat or whatever the case may be, right? So there are these symptoms, right, that come with guilt. These are the things you're going to actually feel in your body, okay? So just keep in mind, because sometimes we feel it in our body before we can recognize what's going on in here. So if you can make that connection and be like, dang, why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling like, I can't open up. I don't want to be around people and things like that. Like that, those are the symptoms, the physical symptoms that are generated by the emotion, right? And in this case, the emotion of guilt. There's also one more symptom, like stomach aches. Some people can have like stomach aches, Then on top of that as well, as emotions operate, right? Sometimes they don't operate just by themselves. Sometimes, again, we talked about this in the last video, or maybe it was the one before that. I think it was a hurt actually, where it was talking about how sometimes there are other emotions that can tie in. I know in the last video specifically, we talked about disappointment, how sadness can be an emotion that ties in to this. So, but we're just focusing on this, but I just wanted to give you the heads up because sometimes you're like, man, there's like a mix of different things going on. And that's because you have different emotions that are going on all at the same time, which is why it's important to recognize what they are. But again, today we are talking about guilt. Now, how do we correct it? The first thing we need to do is we need to look at what rule was violated, what belief was violated, what standard wasn't met. We need to look at that and we need to make sure that that standard, that belief, that rule is a fair rule, that it's not too stringent, that it's not too strict, that it's not too rigid. We have to look at this rule and make sure we're not being too hard on ourselves, because some people try to be perfectionists and they will always be guilty because they never reach that standard. They never reach it ever. They're always violating that rule because they're just never good enough. And really what's going on is maybe there was some programming that took place when you were a child where no matter what you did, it was never good enough. Or maybe you saw other people praised for these high-level achievements, but you never received that. So now you feel you're not good enough, right? So then you set these standards and you try to reach them, you can never reach them. Or you're trying to reach other standards, other people's standards, and you just never reach them. Right? So you need to first stop and self-reflect. Is this a fair rule? Is it a fair belief? Is it a fair standard? Is this something I can actually achieve? Is this something I can actually live up to? Because nobody's perfect, right? So any rule we have that requires perfection, it might need to be changed because you might be really, really hard on yourself for not meeting that standard. So first and foremost, reflect on that rule. Now, let's just say you did, and you find out like, oh man, yeah, it was reasonable. You know what? I shouldn't have been messaging that girl on Instagram. I don't even move like that. It's not even what I do, man. Now my girlfriend's hurt, my wife is hurt. Yeah, that it is a fair rule, Keith. I went over it. It's a fair rule. It's a standard, and I shouldn't have done it, right? Or Keith, yeah, I know I'm supposed to be on this strict diet or whatnot, but I you know what? I fumbled the bag. Yeah, no, Keith, I know I'm supposed to be there on time. I said I was gonna be there on time, and I keep messing up, man. I'm not being a man of my word. Okay, fair rule. Good, great. It's been established. Now you learn a little bit more about yourself. Now what do? Now do we beat ourselves up? Do we deprecate ourselves? Oh, I'm so stupid. I'm so dumb. How could I do that? I'm such a horrible person. Oh, maybe that. No, guys, please. Because when we start doing that actually leads to the shame. And shame and guilt are connected, but they're not the same thing. See, let me explain what shame is. Shame is when you now take on that idea that I'm a bad person. I am no good. I text that girl online. I made a mistake. I violated my own rule and standard. I'm a terrible human being as a result. Guilt says I made a mistake and violated the rule. My behavior was not correct. Shame says I am the problem. I'm a terrible person. Shame destroys people. Shame hinders people. Shame is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing, right? We do not want to take on the persona of shame. We do not want to take that on as a moniker or as a belief within ourselves. We do not want to do that. Every single person on the planet makes mistakes. Nobody is perfect, ever, anywhere, at any point in time. So, if it's just guilt, right? The behavior you messed up, that's not who you are, then just find out, okay, why did I mess up? Why did I mess up? What happened for me to text that girl online? Oh man, I was on there and I was scrolling and the algorithm started throwing things my way, and before I knew it, I was down this rabbit hole, and then all of a sudden, boom. Okay, how can we fix that? Maybe you should come off social media altogether. Maybe you need to try to find a way to fix the algorithm. Maybe you need to look and see some of the people you're following or some of the pages you're following and remove those. Maybe you need to go and add some other pages that are better and healthier and more aligned with who you are, or whatever it is in this example, right? Find a way to fix it so it doesn't happen again. Stop taking other women's numbers. What? No, stop doing that. Stop opening up these doors. Find out what went wrong and fix it. Take action to fix it so you don't violate your own rule again. And the more barriers you can set up to keep yourself safe, the better. And this is actually a great way to start restoring relationships as well, because then you can start building that consistency and making sure that, okay, these things won't happen again. And now you can trust me because now you can see the fruit of my labor and the fruit of my efforts, right? You can start doing that, right? So now, what are some other things you could do as far as guilt's concerned? One, you can forgive yourself. Again, you are not perfect. We make mistakes. We're not perfect, and it's okay, right? Because we learn and we grow and we get better as time goes on. That's what that last step was all about, learning and getting better as time goes on, so we don't keep making the same mistakes. Forgive yourself. And then the next one is to give yourself grace. Again, we are not perfect. And grace says, yeah, maybe you don't deserve forgiveness or you don't deserve to come back, but you know what? Listen, we understand the struggle. It's okay. Come on back, man. We're here for you. And now if we're talking about internally with ourselves, I won't try to get too deep on this, but there's a lot of us that experienced things when we were younger and we hold it against ourselves heavy. And this is the shame I'm talking about. We hold on to that and that becomes a part of who we are. Shame should never be part of who we are. Guilt should never be part of who we are. So in those cases, if you've done something a long time ago and you're still holding on to it and it still hits you like a Mack truck every time you think about it, even though you've done everything you can to change your behaviors, you need to go back and forgive yourself and give yourself grace. Give your younger self grace. Your younger self didn't know any better. Your younger self had different influences in their life. Your younger self was in a different situation. Your younger self was just trying to survive. They was doing the best they could with what they had. Give yourself some grace. So guys, that's guilt, all right? That is guilt. Now let's move on to loneliness, all right? What is loneliness? The feeling of a loneliness. What is that? Loneliness is a signal from our brain that says we need to connect with people. We need to connect. We're lacking that connection. And this is so important. This is so important, right? Because in the Bible, it says, it is not good for man to be alone. And from the moment the Bible said that, the moment God said that, it became an immutable law. It became an immutable law like gravity. And whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't matter because it is true. Science bears it out. Then if you're like, oh, no, okay, something that's listen, look at the pandemic. Look what happened when we were isolated. How the depression went up, how the anxiety went up, how the domestic violence went up, how the suicides went up because we weren't connected. That's your evidence right there. We need each other. It is critical for us to connect with our fellow human beings. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, we got to be around people 24/7. And that's not even what God is saying in the Bible when he said that. He's just saying it's not good for us to be alone. Because I'll tell you this, you could actually be by yourself and still not feel lonely because you have these spiderweb connections. I was talking to my wife about this when we were in Baltimore. Now I was saying, like, when I was by myself in Baltimore, I never felt alone. When my family was all across the nation in Florida and Vegas and all these things like that, I never felt alone. Why? Because I have invisible connections to my mom, to my brothers, my sisters, my children, my wife. I have my best friend. Like, I have these invisible connections, so I never really feel alone because they're a phone call away, they're a text away. With all that being said, the emotion of loneliness, the signal your brain is saying, hey, we got to connect. It's been a little too long, right? I know maybe you're an introvert, but hey, we got to get a little bit of connection with somebody. Maybe we don't need a whole, day's worth, but maybe a little quick visit, maybe a little coffee date or something like that, right? So that's the message we're getting. We need to connect with people, right? So what are some of the symptoms of that? Like an emptiness on the inside, emptiness, that's part of it. Maybe sometimes if you're really, really, really been alone for a while, you might get some aches and pains and you don't know where they're coming from. That emptiness on the inside is, it's not like a physical feeling, right? It's not like in the sense of like the pain, like the physical pain, but it just feels like something's missing, right? It feels like something's missing. And also sometimes when we're alone, sometimes it can be a lack of motivation. Again, that's not a physical symptom. Those are symptoms. Now let's go to the correction. All right. What do we need to do? Okay. Obviously, the first thing that for loneliness is you need to go out there and connect with somebody, right? That's kind of, someone might be like, duh, but that's the first thing you need to do. Go find someone to connect with, right? Call up your best friend, call up your girlfriends, guys trip, link up, go to the gym, whatever, go date night with your wife, something like that, something where you can go out and you can connect. And now this is really important. Let me also say this. Maybe I should have prefaced this, right? The connection is what's important. It's not the amount of people you have around you, because you could be lonely in a room full of people. It's the connection that has to be made, that I'm listening to you, you're listening to me, we have similar interests. I'm validating you. I'm not dismissing your thoughts. You're interesting to me. There's got to be a connection. There's got to be a connection. So important. It's not just being in a room full of people. It's not just being in a crowd. You literally got to connect with somebody. And obviously, some of the things, I won't say obviously, but some of the things, right? If you want friends, be friendly. Be friendly, be warm, be open, smile. Smile. It's okay to smile. That puts people's defenses down. When we smile, it puts their defenses down. So to be warm, be friendly, be open, smile, have a good, nice handshake, look people in the eye. These social skills, these social cues, they make people feel comfortable. That makes people trust you. If you have humor, use it. Humor also lowers defenses and allows people to be more open with you and share things with you and connect with you, right? Also something good, be positive. Right? Make sure you are positive. Yes, there are people out there that are negative Nellies and misery loves company. So maybe you find the other person who's negative and, oh man, can you believe that speaker? Can you believe what they said? Yeah, I can't believe what they said. They were so blah, 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 blah. Right? If you want to make that type of connection, you can. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I would more so recommend being positive. thinking positive, speaking positive, building people up, pouring into people. That's good, positive energy that you're letting off. People love that and they want to bask in that. They want to be around that. You are vibrating at a higher frequency. People want to be around that. So the more you're putting out that positivity, that positive energy, the smiles, the friendliness, the warmth, the more you're putting that out, the more people are going to want to be around you, are going to want to connect with you, are going to want to invite you out to this event and that event and all these things like that. So make sure that you're doing these things so that you don't have to be lonely, right? And last thing, just make sure your needs are met, right? And what I mean by that is if you're in an intimate relationship, so I mentioned like a date night with your wife or your husband or things like that, make sure your needs are met, right? Make sure that you're sharing that with them like, hey, I really would love to spend time with you because I enjoy spending time with you, right? I miss us, the time we had together was so great the other night. I really want to do it again. I need you to understand, I'm saying this in a certain way. Because unfortunately, what happens is when people bring stuff up, especially in a relationship, it's you never have time for me. You're always working. You don't care about me. You don't love me. And so now what does the other person do? You think they're like, oh, wow, babe. Oh, mom, so sorry. No, they don't do that. For one, you didn't even say what the real issue was about you being lonely. You didn't say the real issue. So what do you think they're going to do? They're going to address that fact. I'm working all the time. I got this project going on. If I don't work, we don't eat. What are you talking about? The reason why, blah, 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 blah. And now you guys are in a full-blown argument. And so now both of you feel hurt. Neither one of you has been heard. You're still lonely, and it just gets in the other, your husband, your wife are now frustrated and angry. Now you're not connected anymore. So now you're even more lonely. How you convey that message and your needs is so, so important. But again, that's a topic for another time. I don't want to go too far into that. But long story short, whoever you're talking to, put a positive spin on it. Let them know, man, I really, really want to be in touch. I really want to hang out with you because it's so much fun. Last time we went out, man, it was a blast. It was crazy. Remember what you did, when you said to that guy, man, it was so funny. Now you're generating those positive emotions. Remember being positive? Now you're generating those positive emotions. Now it's warm. Now there's humor. Now it's funny. Now what do you think that person's going to want to do? Yeah, that was a phenomenal time. Yeah, man. Hey, what do you got going on? Maybe we can link up this weekend. Of course. Why? Because you just generated a positive emotion in this person. I'm sorry, not positive. A pleasant emotion in this person. Remember, because emotions are neither negative or positive, either pleasant or unpleasant. Remember that video earlier on? But any case, so you generate a pleasant emotion in that person, and generally speaking, the way the brain operates, if we're getting a pleasant emotion, we're going to want more of that pleasant emotion. And so now planning a trip or planning a time out gives us that pleasant emotion, and guess what? We're going to want to do it. The brain's like, yeah, let's do that, right? Because pleasant emotions, we feel they're safe. So that's how you combat loneliness, right? And matter of fact, take that back. Take that back. Gosh. See, even I still got to work. See what I said about being perfect, right? I'm not perfect. I still make mistakes. I'm still working through some of this language, right? Because again, we're not combating loneliness, right? Because loneliness is not a problem in and of itself. Loneliness is just a message. So we're not fighting against the message, right? This is now how we understand the message and how we can answer the emotion and answer the message, right? So that is how we answer the loneliness. That is also how we answer guilt and shame, right? So with all this being said, everybody, listen, please, please, please take these things to heart. Start using them, start practicing them on a daily basis. Start recognizing what you're feeling and sharing it. I hope you all have someone you could open up and talk to and share this information with and talk to about how you're feeling and process it with. I hope you all have a safe person. We should all have a safe person to open up and share and talk to. And if you can't find someone, guys, listen, seek help. Get yourself a therapist. Again, if you're in the Nevada, or if you're in Florida, I'm here to help. As far as therapy is concerned, coaching, I can do anywhere in the world, right? So if you need someone to talk to and work through some of these things and get a better understanding and learn more about like emotional intelligence and how to operate and how to move, guys, I'm here for it. All the links are down in the link in the description below. Any link you need to get to me, and listen, and I'm nothing but a Google search away anyways. You search Keith Fairclough, I'm going to pop up, right? So please stay tuned. We got more emotions coming. right? So we got 7 down now or 9 down. So we have a few more to go. And listen, we're going to be getting to some more unpleasant emotions. It's not always going to be these ones that are unpleasant. We're going to get to some of the pleasant ones and learn how we can actually enhance those, right? Because it's really important to be, when we have those pleasant emotions, we want to be able to enhance them, get more of that happiness, more of that peace, more of that joy, more of that excitement. We got to learn how to enhance that, right? So I love you guys. You all take care. Have a great, awesome, and blessed day, and I'll see you next time.